no worries. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being out. We are about only a little bit less than a little bit more than a week out from election day. So that should be a really exciting time, but we know it's going to be the most busy because we have a lot of people that we need to talk to, that we need to turn out to vote, that we need to help them get their vote plans, and some people who are still making decisions about who they want to vote. So for those folks, I'm Summer Lee, and it has been my honor to serve as your congresswoman for the last year and a few months. I came in and I ran for Congress 2 years ago. And when I was running on very much the same things that I care about now, right? That we're sitting here and we're looking at this region where we have so many superlatives, right? We're the most livable region and most affordable region. But what we recognize is that that sort of prosperity was not translating across communities, that we have so much that we still can do to help so many of the most marginalized or some of the communities that have been left behind. I grew up in the Mon Valley where we have some of the worst air quality, where we, of course, had so many of the jobs that have left. And we're looking at schools that are divested. I ran on a simple platform, right? That we can center regular working people, Black and white and brown, in our politics and make sure that the voices of those who are most impacted by any of the policy decisions that we see being made, whether it be Congress or the state house where I used to be, that those people who are closest to the impact need to be in positions of power. So when I won last year, I was the first Black woman to ever be elected to Congress from Pennsylvania. And since I've gotten into Congress, we knew that we had, large shoes to fill. I took over after Congressman Doyle, who served us for 28 years. And that was 28 years of seniority, of relationships, and all of the rest that he built up. So we knew that we had to get in, that we didn't have time to waste. We didn't have time to try to figure things out, but instead we had to get in and we had to start making moves. So we went in immediately down to DC and we started building relationships, making sure that we were in close contact with President Biden and his administration so that we can make sure that Western Pennsylvania was not missing out on any of the big resources that were going to be coming into our region. But more than that, we made sure and we made the case that those resources need to be equitably distributed. Every single dollar that we've helped to attract or helped to fight for has a connection to something that matters to each and every one of our communities. So whether we are helping to deliver dollars to remediate land, not just out of our pipes, as we've seen PWSA being able to receive federal dollars to do great work, but also removing lead from our water and our schools, where Pittsburgh, not just Flint, where Pittsburgh also has an issue with lead in our water. We've been able to help bring dollars back. Right here in the Historic Hill District by working with Secretary Fudge, my soror, and somebody who I've grown very close to, and we are going to absolutely miss. But we were able to help the Hill District finish and get their grants across the finish line to make sure that we were getting $50 million in the Choice Neighborhood Grant. And these are dollars that this community fought for themselves. They were already working on this application, had already been working on the plan to make sure that the Hill District, historically divested, got the investments that they deserved. And what we needed was somebody who was going to be able to go there and bring it over the finish line. So we were happy to be able to get that. And that was just the beginning. When we talk about clean air and water and we talk about manufacturing, our whole plan has been that we can do that, but also doing it in a way that is green, sustainable, and doesn't continue to pollute the same old people who are getting polluted. So when we were able to help EOS, the battery company in Turtle Creek, stay in Western Pennsylvania, and they would, by being able to get them this loan, they're now going to be able to provide 1,000 jobs in our region. We've been able to help. We've got a lot of flooding this week. We were able to work with Secretary Buttigieg to bring money to fix I-376, including the bathtub, so that commuters here in Western Pennsylvania no longer have to sit and go on detour after detour. We've been able to help to bring money and attention to our bridges, to our roads, to our housing stock. And that's just the beginning. We've had an incredibly busy year that we are so proud of. We've been able to bring representation and bring attention to not just City of Pittsburgh, which we love. It is our biggest municipality, but we represent 63 municipalities and been able to build with them, work with their municipalities families to make sure that they're not being left behind in this region. And on Monday, I have to go to DC early, where my bill, our bipartisan wells remediation bills, because we know that as wells leak in this region, leaking methane, that is a danger to us. We have a bill that's going to come to the House floor, not out of committee, to the House floor. So hopefully on Monday, my first bill will be passed. So we are so excited about what we've been able to do. And hopefully, if you all are willing, we would love to continue to be able to do it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. But I just want to say that when, we in this next week, we don't know what ads are going to say, what people are going to say. But I can tell you, I have a positive vision for the work that we do. And that's all I lead with. But I will say, there are a lot of people who are going to say, oh, she doesn't work with Biden. She doesn't do this. She doesn't do that. What we're asking you to do is look at the record. Look at the receipts of what we've been able to provide. And we would not have been this successful if we weren't building those relationships, if the administration were not bought into the vision that we also have for Western Pennsylvania. And I think that's the thing that we should be most proud of, that even President Biden and everyone else in our federal government has looked at Western Pennsylvania. They've seen the demands that we've made. They've seen the changes that we've made by electing progressives up and down the ballot, and they are reacting and responding in kind. We can only do that when we are flowing in the same direction. So I hope that we won't lose the opportunity with the trifecta we have and more, right? To really actually have, for once, a federal government, a city government, and a county government that are all fighting in the same direction. We need to make sure that we're secure in that. So April 23rd, vote, tell your family to vote, make your vote plan. Are you going to vote in the morning? Are you going to vote after work? Are you going to walk to the polls? Are you going to take your grandkid? Let's make sure that we're helping all of our neighbors make those plans, because we are going to need high turnout. And then on April 24th, we start the fight to make sure that we do not go back to a Donald Trump presidency. Western Pennsylvania, Allegheny County is going to be the most important place. So let's get over this primary, but then let's make sure that we're doing the work that our country is going to need us to do. So thank you. Jay, this is your fault. You should have went first. But thank you. Thank you so much. So when I think about how we kind of separate our different jobs, right? We have the job that we do down in DC where we're passing legislation. Obviously, we advocate for things, so many things that are most important for seniors. Seniors, and some of the things, the programs that benefit seniors most have been the things that have been most vulnerable this year under the GOP Congress and the GOP House. They've spent this entire year threatening to cut Social Security, Medicare, and those other earned benefits. That was the thing that they decided that they were going to focus on. So we have spent all year making sure that, first of all, we are protecting those earned benefits, that our seniors who are retiring, who deserve to retire in dignity, that they don't have to keep worrying about whether or not year after year they're going to lose those benefits. So that was the first and biggest fight that we were waged in and that we were able to contribute to, but also we were able to help through our constituent services. I think the largest population of people who we do get to help here in our district office, there are seniors, and we obviously have our office in East Liberty, but that's not the only office we have. We've been able to open up satellite offices around the region, but also we have field folks who go out and they are able to help people there. So we've been able to help with all of those issues that our seniors have the most. And I think we were able to solve 2,000 cases. So 2,000 people we were able to get, not just help, but get them solved and closed. We have been able to, of course, help people get money back into their pockets. So like folks who have money that they've unclaimed property, we were able to help people with that. A lot of our seniors needed help with that, helping to get people enrolled in programs. We are going to be pushing for more of those programs so that we can help, and we will have more of that to come. What else have we been able to do as seniors? I was just say around housing. There have been a lot of issues around public housing in this region. In Homewood, we were able to help, and our staff and us were all able to help with, like, for instance, down in Homewood, where they have those folks living in less than good conditions. And of course, they were being taken advantage of. And because those of us at a couple levels of government were able to go and help, we're getting those folks back on track. So we've been able to help seniors with their housing, with those programs. And of course, legislation that we are now fighting for, whether it be the Farm Bill, which is big, that we're still fighting for, making sure that people have access to their nutrition, like services, things of that nature. Those are things that are still in the pike that we're helping work with. I would love to. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, my favorite thing about political ad season is that the reality is that people don't actually have to be truthful. And they don't have to have receipts because that's just the nature of these ads. So first of all, let me say, always question the source. Who's paying for these ads? So right now, all of the ads that are coming up against me are against one guy, Jeff Yaz, who is the richest man in Pennsylvania, and every dollar that this man has put into taken out of his pocket, aside from being the biggest Republican donor right now in the country, he's Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary pick, and he just bought True Social so that he's liquid enough to pay his court fines. So this is the man who is trying to convince you that I'm not a real Democrat. So we're going to take that with a grain of salt. But he spent all of his money to erode public education, to erode abortion care and access. So just to go through some of the arguments that they made, I think I'm not going to lie to you, I've seen every ad once because I don't watch them, but I've seen them. I've seen them all once. The most recent one they had, right? I think the whole premise of it was that I didn't stand for Joe Biden at the State of the Union, which is the most absurd thing that I've ever seen because we're at the State of the Union for 2 hours. Hours. Are they trying to tell me that they sat on a camera and watched me for hours and counted how many times I stood up and clapped? Because I did that throughout the night. And sometimes I didn't stand up because we're standing up and sitting down and standing up and sitting down. So what they did was they basically found one picture of me not standing up and made it a political ad, right? No, they didn't take any of the pictures of me standing up and clapping. But they found one when I was sitting down and looking at my phone, like all of the other hundreds of people who were in that building. So that's one thing. The working with Joe Biden, right? There's never been a time. I think when you look at our records, right? We take hundreds and hundreds of votes. And I will say I'm one of 7 Democrats who have a perfect record, which means that I have not missed a single vote since the first day that I've been in office, and not just vote. I've never missed a committee vote. I've never missed a committee hearing or a subcommittee hearing. So we've done all of that, which means that I've never taken a walk on a vote. So of every single vote that we've taken, I think that what they are taking issue with, other than Israel votes, which I have explained and I am happy to continue talking about, these are important conversations that we need to continue to have. But whether or not the budget, a lot of people want to frame it that this was Biden's budget. This was not Biden's budget. That's just not how government works. Senator Costa can tell you that. When the Republicans run the House, that is a Republican budget. I voted no on a Republican budget along with dozens of Democrats. Similarly, I voted no on the Republicans' debt ceiling bill with not just dozens more, including the leader of our Democratic leader of the Appropriations Committee, who voted no on the debt ceiling bill. Our chairman of the Ed and Labor Committee voted no on the debt ceiling bill. And Democrats across the ideological perspective, from frontline members who risk losing their seats because it is a flip red to blue, all the way to members of the Black Caucus, the CHC, the Hispanic Caucus, and the Asian caucuses, members of frontline, members who are more moderate to members who are progressive. Because the reality is that we all knew when we went into that bill that it was not Democrats' responsibility to carry that bill, either one of those, over the finish line. But we know how to count. And what we did not want to do and what we should not do is we should never have unanimous Democratic consent for bills that cut programs that impact the most marginalized. We recognize that there are people and that it's always going to fall on the Democrats to keep the government open because the Republicans just are not responsible people. But when they are cutting programs, this budget that they on these ads say is a Democrat budget or Biden's budget, it cuts funding to the labor, to the Department of Labor, to the Department of Education. It defunded diversity, equity, and inclusion in Congress. It continued on with the Hyde Amendment that bars poor and working class women from being able to access abortion care with their Medicare. It did a lot of things that we did not agree with. If Joe Biden had a Democratic Congress, that would not have been the budget that we were voting on. And people who are running these ads are people who are running desperate campaigns because they want a position in government, but have never actually had to take hard votes. They've never been in the briefing room when we have to weigh which communities, which interests are going to be most impacted by these decisions. It's easy for them to run ads that erase all nuance. But I caution you all, because nuance is not the enemy of democracy, right? We must continue to be nuanced. It's actually not a bad thing to disagree with the president. And I disagree with the president far less than any of these ads would ever have you believe. I think we're now talking 4 votes, right? 4 votes out of hundreds. But the fact that we've disagreed with the president is the reason why he now has historic victories on eliminating student loan debt. It's why he now has landmark legislation, from the Inflation Reduction Act to the Infrastructure Act, pieces of legislation that are transforming the American economy and getting us up to scale, not just on our infrastructure investments, but on our climate investments. That's because there are people in our party who disagree with each other, who kept going back to the table, making sure that we had the best proposals, and we fought for the most that we could possibly get out of it. So no, anybody who's telling you that you cannot disagree with a politician, or that they would agree with a politician 100% is lying to you, because I don't agree with myself 100%, and that's just not real. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. That's a really good question, and a work in progress. The reality is that, especially, with whether it's the federal government, even when I was at the state level with Senator Costa, right, translating the things that we get sometimes, especially for us, right, we fight so hard for every little thing, right? Every dime we got to go and fight for. So when we get it, in our heads, we're like, oh my God, we did it. This is the best thing. And we might see a great big picture that, everyone else isn't privy to, because for them, they're like, but on my day-to-day basis, my groceries are still expensive, right? The bus routes are still being cut, right? How does that translate? So on the one thing, we have to always keep that in perspective, right? That even when we get big victories that feel like they're going to trickle down and help everybody, having just enough respect to recognize that everybody doesn't feel that at once. A lot of the things that we work on at the federal level are big, right? Because we control the purse, so we're bringing in dollars, resources that come in through some of the bills. Some of these dollars are really big, and they're going to be transformative, but sometimes they're not going to be transformative for the next 5 years, right? So even when we're talking about the clean air initiatives that we have, right, getting lead out of our school, right, that's a big thing. If an individual say, how did you help me, the answer might be harder to say. But then if you remember, well, you know what, your kid is not going to go to a school where we're worried that when they go to their water fountain and they drink water, that your baby's going to have lead poisoning. That's going to impact them for the rest of their lives, right? So it's not easy. It's not like a glamorous thing to say, but it's a thing that we know helps. With the housing, for instance, right? Bedford dwellings should have never gotten into that condition, right? Should have never been there. Um, and making sure that even when we get those dollars, that's just the beginning. What we now need to make sure is that we have a community process and community oversight, that every dollar that is going into building this, to building it out, is community centered, that it has the actual needs of the residents in mind, and that people aren't in the meantime being pushed out and won't then be able to even benefit when things are done. Or even that these dollars, the real purpose of the 50 million is not just to fix Bedford dwelling, it's actually to draw down dollars, is to attract more dollars that are going to come in for the greater build out of the Hill District, which means that, while that's a good first step, and we don't celebrate our first steps because we take them, right? But we want to make sure that folks in the Hill District don't just get housing in the future, but like that it's connected to the grocery store that comes, or it's connected to, the additional bus routes that are going to come, or people who are going to come back in. So we got more work to do. With the jobs, it just makes me think that, yes, we are able to help get those jobs, but advertising them is still an issue, right? Making sure that people know about opportunities that exist that we've been helping to pitch into or create. Obviously, our websites and our Twitter and our things of that nature, if people follow those, we always spread information, but makes me think we probably have to do more job fairs. We want to make sure that we're connecting people on other sides of town to some of the new industries that are coming in. And it's not just EOS, right? There are jobs that are coming in for tech, Google, and it isn't just like tech, you need to have like a degree from CMU. It's actually every single level, right? From high school, high school education on up. But a lot of people don't know that those jobs and those opportunities exist. So you're right. We have to do a little bit better about making sure that people know them here, right? And everywhere. So we'll be brainstorming, and we might reach out to you to figure out how and who we're missing and how we can get to them. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman.